Games. We've all played them, and on this channel I've played a lot of them. So in today's video, I want to take a walk down memory lane and put almost all of them into a tier list. I didn't add every game because, honestly, not all of them are worth mentioning. I either didn't play them a lot, or it was just an insignificant experience. Let me just say, these games are in order of when I played them. So if you are here to hear about The Legend of Zelda, sorry, I have a speech impediment, then you'll have to wait. Nevertheless, enjoy the video. First up is Happy Wheels. Happy Wheels, though not being a major staple on the channel like some other channels like Debuscus, PewDiePie, or Jacksepticeye, it was the first game I ever played on the channel. It was the first multi-part series on the channel, and it was the first game that I played with a friend for a video. As for gameplay, it was fairly simple. You could effectively play the majority of the levels with just one hand, and the gameplay, however, was very messed up. Very bloody, and maybe a tad bit sadistic. Maybe. The game was entirely community made and managed, so the levels all tended to be the same recycled content with very little variation or innovation happening. There were some special cases that changed the game up a bit, but from your day-to-day experience, the same kind of levels would appear all the time. I'm talking your ball, sword, bottle, kid throws, or literally just insert any object and add throw to the end of it levels. Your spike, jet, and ball falls. Your pogo jump levels, which people would occasionally add weapons to try and make it more of a challenge, though honestly it just made it more annoying half the time. Or the plethora of other recycled levels. So honestly, as a self-proclaimed mediocre game critic, I have to say this is an A tier game at best, B tier at worst. My final decision, based upon my own amount of time spent playing the game, and how much fun I had playing it through the years, Happy Wheels is an A tier game. Next up is Terraria. For you newcomers, I have to say, during my early days on YouTube, I have been doing this for nearly 8 years now, Terraria was my biggest series on the channel. Even today, Terraria is tied with The Legend of Zelda and Ori and the Blind Forest for the spot of longest running series on the channel. Though I did try to end the Zelda series quickly and ended up condensing about 7.5 hours of gameplay into about 35 minutes roughly. And as for Ori and the Blind Forest, I just haven't finished the game yet, so, you know. The sheer amount of content in Terraria makes it well worth the $10 on Steam, and if you're lucky and catch it on a Steam sale, which happens all the time, you might just pay $2 for it. With thousands of unique items, blocks, weapons, armor, enemies, bosses, an endless amount of massive worlds to explore, Terraria is by far one of the best games you can experience in today's gaming lineup. My final decision for Terraria? S tier. No other option would do, and without repeating myself too much, this game just has so much to offer. You're either a fool to ignore it, or the game truly just isn't your style. Moving on to Clicker Heroes, and I mean, come on, it's the same as all other Clicker games, right? Maybe it has more polish, maybe it has more upgrades or levels, but it's just like any other Clicker game, so there's not much to be said, is there? I won't go into the history of Clicker Heroes on this channel, because it's just 13-year-old me's naiveness, though the videos are still up should you choose to subject yourself to the terror of my prepubescent voice. My final decision for Clicker Heroes is an astounding D tier. It's simply like any other Clicker game, so not much to really judge. As for our next game, Agar.io, or Agar.io, whichever you prefer, there is a little bit to say about it. Agar.io was the first game of its kind, and thus it created a new disease of low effort and fake multiplayer games that were an easy ad farm for small and obscure developers. I don't appreciate all of the fake IO games that came after it, however, Agar.io was quite addictive for the time, original, and very fun with friends. Not much else to add to it, so I'll move right on to my decision. Based on experience and aforementioned details, I give Agar.io the measly C tier. I'm gonna interject in here real quick and just say that this is a new style of content for me and my first attempt at it, so I hope you all are enjoying it. And with that being said, back to your regularly scheduled mess that is my channel. Next up, let me tell you about a game called WrestleJump. WrestleJump was a very fun game, however, it's one of those flash games that require 2 people to play properly, as it's a player versus player game. On the channel, I played WrestleJump with my friend Luke, who by the way is doing just fine nowadays for any of my OG subscribers. He was doing fine then as well. I just feel like I should update you since he hasn't been on the channel for a while. It was a very simple game. 2 matadors, I believe are what they called. are holding each other, and each player controls one, and when they jump, whoever hits their head first loses. Which, with all of that said, there's not much more to discuss since this isn't an in-depth review of all these games or their mechanics. My final decision for Wrestle Jump is B tier. It's a fun experience that will hold you over for about 30 minutes or so, but the novelty will wear off at some point. Next up is one of my personal favorite games of all time, and that is Minecraft. To be more accurate, I played a couple of different things Minecraft related. For instance, my earliest video on Minecraft is of Prison, but that was a short-lived series, like most on the channel. There's not much for me to say about Minecraft either, so my final decision for Minecraft is also S tier. Now we move on to Garry's Mod. Garry's Mod is less a game and more like a platform to spread your sandbox wings. Very little actually comes with base Garry's Mod. It's not until you check out the workshop when you're greeted with thousands of mods, though each with varying levels of quality. My final decision for Garry's Mod is S tier as well. Bloons Tower Defense 3. I'm not really sure what to say about BTD 3 because it's like all the other ones, just with more features than its predecessors and less features than its successors. There's a fair amount of levels to play and all those 8 tracks, so you'll definitely be held over for a couple of hours maybe. I don't have much else to add to this game though, so I'll get right to judgment. BTD 3 for me is a solid B tier. It has solid gameplay, just without the polish of the newer games in the series. Ah, Space Base DF9. You wonderful garbage game, you. Space Base was on track to be a very successful game. That wasn't until Double Fine abandoned it at launch. Yes, this beautiful game was abandoned at launch, and Double Fine basically said, you paid for it, fix it yourself. And then left the poor baby of a game at all the early adopters' doorsteps. I was one of those early adopters. I have a ton of time put into Space Base, and I've seen the ending multiple times to where it doesn't even faze me anymore. The game is, however, a little buggy. And as for the AI, it is trash. Simple as that. If you tell your guards to go arrest somebody, they might get around to it sooner rather than later. They might, or they might not. With that example alone, you will often have fights break out, and before anybody is arrested or subdued, you'll end up with one of your citizens unconscious on the floor. And if it wasn't the aggressor, then they will just go on to fight more people. There's plenty wrong with the game that I wish Double Fine would have just fixed, however they didn't and they never will. That's about all I have to say about Space Base, but I would like to interject a clip here from my first attempt at this video, because I'm such a good YouTuber.
Space Base DF9, which when I was thinking about it, by the way, I absolutely blew my mind. And like, it makes sense to me. I have no idea if this is common knowledge among the player base or the people that knew this game. But I'm over here like Space Base DF9. I'm trying to think of like, what would I name my game? DF10 or something? You know? And then I'm like, wait a minute. Space Base DF9 is by Double Fine Productions. DF9 Double Fine. Oh my god, it's Space Base Double Fine. I have no idea if that's common knowledge. I have no idea if that's true, if that's actually what it stands for. But honestly, it makes sense to me. So I blew my mind right there. Hopefully one of the Double Fine I guess workers, producers, directors, whoever that was in charge of the Space Base can get to me and be like, yeah, you're right, or yeah, you're just totally wrong. I would love to know.
My decision for Space Base DF9 is C tier. For any new player, there's a fair bit of content to get into. However, after a few hours of playing the game, you'll quickly come to realize just how little variation there is. You'll see the same 15, and honestly that might be generous, messages pop up, and you can easily memorize which ones are good or bad and who will ignore you if you tell them off. I'm not sure if they changed the name at some point. I believe I saw a video titled similar to Expendabros, but it was off by just a bit, so I'm not too sure. But this game is honestly incredibly fun. It's just a run and gun game featuring some of your favorite big screen heroes and smart references. Again, this isn't a review of the game, just a tier list, so we'll move on to my decision. It's a solid A tier, worth checking out. Stick RPG. It's sort of a flash game life simulator. Go to school, get a better paying job, work out, get into bar fights, sell drugs, just a whole lot of things. It really is an experience you have to experience for yourself, so I won't say anything else about it. Although it's something to experience for yourself, I didn't say it was the best experience. My decision is C tier. Here's a little game called You Have 10 Seconds To. I didn't play the first game, but it's probably good considering there's a second and a third game in the series as well. The whole premise is you're in a small level and you have 10 seconds to beat it. It's pretty challenging, but it's really fun. I'll put this game into B tier. All I have is a very quick piece about Crash Bandicoot The Insane Trilogy. It's a faithful remake of the original games, and they're still just as fun as ever. The trilogy is an S tier game. Fallout Shelter is meh, C tier. Skyrim just works, S tier. Up next is Loading Screen Simulator. This is an incredibly easy but boring game. For one of the achievements, you have to play an incredibly slow version of Pong and win 100 times in a row. I unfortunately did spend the time to get all the achievements, but I'm not alone in that, so that makes it a little bit better on me. D tier. And now we have Bloons TD Battles, which is like the other games, except it's PvP. A tier. I don't know much about Team First Star, so just based off the fact that it numbs my brain when I play it, B tier. By the way, I should mention Team First Star RPG. I have no idea what Team First Star is. I've just played the RPG. Fan-made, by the way. I should mention that as well. I haven't played a whole lot of Half-Life, but it was starting to get good when I quit playing, so for right now, B tier. I'll pick it up later, eventually. Fortnite was godly back in Season 2 through 4, but they just changed it too much and too frequently. C tier. Trove is a massive game with a huge community. A tier. There's a lot to get into with Trove. Check it out. I hope y'all weren't expecting long explanations for every game on here. I've played a lot of them, you know. Dying Light is just incredible. S tier. Johnny Upgrade is a classic cool math game. Also S tier. And now I'm going to slow my roll just a little bit because this is when we move into the new PC era of my channel. And I don't mean the one I have now, my first proper PC. The first game I played was called September 1999. And it was an experience. I really can't say anything other than that because, man, it's only about 5 minutes or so, and it's free. Go play it or watch my video on it. The link will be in the description. It was an incredible, if not messed up, experience. A tier. Development on Abortion Boy should have been aborted at conception because this game is awful. D tier. If I had an F tier, I'd put it there. Bread. A tier. Now, just this once, I'm going to go a little out of order because these 4 games are all made by the same guy, and they're all pretty much the same game. I'm talking about Courage's Curse, 3 a.m. at the Krusty Krab, 3:30 a.m. at Floater Cemetery, and 6 a.m. at the Chum Bucket. They all have the same game mechanics, graphics, controls, hell, even menus, everything. They're not bad, but they're not very different from each other either. C tier. Airscape: The Fall of Gravity. It's a weird one because it seems like it's a fun and good game. However, on my laptop on like level 3 or 4 or something like that, the audio just bugged out and made it an unbearable experience. All in all, without that bug, it's a solid B tier, well worth the $1 I spent on it. Alien Swarm Reactive Drop was okay. I didn't play it a whole lot, but I could probably get into it if I wanted to. And I have no idea if that's a series or if it's just a one-off game, but it's B tier. Besiege is incredible and one of the last games that I've bought early access for. Solid A tier. Cry of Fear was okay, but again, I didn't play a whole lot of it, so for right now, C tier. I'll come back to the game at a later date and then decide again then. Drunken Wrestlers 2 was hilarious, and even more so with friends. B tier. We're almost caught up. How long is this video so far? Like 20 minutes? I don't know. I haven't recorded it yet. So, future me, how was my guess? Half was a very disappointing game. D tier. Grimder, I think it's Grimder, is just tender for the Grim Reaper, and there is a major lack of diversity in the game. So after like 30 minutes of playing, you'll just see the same characters over and over again. C tier. This Swerve Mine is a very good game. How good? When I play a game that lets me be an awful person, I play as an awful person. This game? Nah, man. Nah. I genuinely feel bad for the characters in this game. No other game has ever successfully managed to make me feel bad for the in-game characters. And for that, this word of mine is S tier. Mine's Eyes was more so funny than scary. However, there was an underlying story that was pretty interesting and worth checking it out. C tier. Next up is Uri and the Blind Forest. I love this game.
I'm a master at this game.
For a time there, I was just grinding the same areas, trying to get stronger sooner rather than later. And when I kept dying over and over again, the game started feeling monotonous and I was getting tired of it. However, after getting to a new area, it rejuvenated my eagerness to play the game. Did I mention how beautiful the game is in general? My god, is it such a beautiful game. It really is. Amazing art style. A tier. Passing Pine View Forest was okay. C tier. How to Cope with Boredom and Loneliness. A Guide for the Isolated. Was a hilarious game that was very easy to achieve 100% in, so check it out. Free on Steam. B tier. Undertale is a very well-known game, so I won't say much about it, though mainly because I only have one episode out on it. A tier. Alright guys, look, I'm a firebug. I always have been. Little Inferno just makes the firebug inside me happy. S tier. Error 54 was okay, but it was about some kind of virus going around and infecting people. Other than that, it was a short game. C tier. And honestly, I don't really know if that's the most accurate description of the game either. So, take it as you will. Telltale's The Walking Dead Season 1 has a lot of problems. In fact, all of their games do. None of your choices really matter. However, since it has Lee, and it is still a gripping story, A tier. Slender New Hope is probably the scariest Slender Man game I've ever played. Props to it for that. It takes a new approach to Slender Man, and man do I love it. B tier. Imagine Slender Man, but like a spider. Spideroid? Is that how you would describe it? Spidoid? Spidoidy? I don't know. Moving on. B tier if I didn't say it already. The Alyssa demo was great. The controls were hard as they're based on the old ways of the PlayStation 1 era. However, the game itself is very fun despite that. A tier. Juice Galaxy, or if you watched my video on it, formerly known as Juice World, was just a funny physics-based game. It's honestly so absurd, I don't know what else to say about it or how else to describe it. You just watch the video or look the game up and view for yourself. B tier. Zelda, baby! Zelda Twilight Princess was the first game in the series that I played, and it's my favorite out of the 3D Zelda games, as well as just my favorite Zelda game. S tier. From the soundtrack to the story, just S tier all around. The forest is terrifying when playing alone. 8 out of 10. Good scare. A tier. Siren Head was okay. It wasn't what I was expecting from all of the hype around it. D tier. The Legend of Zelda. The first in the series. Such a wonderful game. I mean, it's hard and confusing and just so open that you have no idea what to do half the time. It's a wonderful game though, and because of it, we have the rest of the Zelda games. A tier. Remember when, just a couple seconds ago, I praised Zelda for being the reason we have all the other Zelda games? Yeah, no. Now, this game can burn in hell. I absolutely hate Zelda 2. D tier. And now, the most recent game I've played on the channel, excluding Roblox, which is from 7 months ago. It's called Max. It was a fine experience, if not mildly frustrating at times. C tier. Hey, welcome to the end of the video. Did you make it all the way? Clearly, if you're answering that question. Did you think I was gonna go into a long tangent since it was the last game? You clearly don't know me if so. That was just about all of the games I've played on this channel. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and all the rest I will create. I played a lot of games and I will play hundreds more. I hope you subscribe and come along on the journey, and I will see you in the next video.